Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. Now, this episode is going to be the last episode before the day. And as such, let's get into some things. I mean, I'm slightly concerned, but otherwise, I guess I can't say anything yet, because I will spoil what this episode is going to say. With that out of the way, let's get right into the news. First, let's go over some updates about the two general elections that happened on the 27th of October. First, we'll start off with Uruguay. Uruguay is pretty obvious. It was kind of expected. Yeah, everybody kind of obviously expected this. Yamandu Arce and Alvaro Delgado are moving on to the second round. And obviously, immediately after the election happened, the rest of the opposition parties endorsed Delgado. Everybody kind of expected that. The more interesting thing, I think, is just kind of what happened with the referendums. The referendums were very interesting. What happened with the referendums? Well, both of them got around 38% of the vote, so they did not meet the threshold to be considered legitimate. I mean, the nighttime raid one, good that it failed, but the Social Security one, it kind of could have been fine. It could have been fine. The next election update comes from Japan. And Japan had a very interesting night. So, there were a couple of parties that were, the big losers of the night were broadly considered the Liberal Democrats, who lost 68 seats. The considered broad winners were the Constitutional Democrats, who got 52 seats, with other parties that were considered winners of the night being San Sieto, a far-right party, the Conservative Party, a far-right party, who both managed to win some seats, and Taro Yamamoto with Reiwa Shinsengumi, who won 6 seats in the election. Here are the 6 seats that they won. Well, the 6 people that ended up winning were Keiko Sahara, Jin Yamakawa, Takashi Takai, Ryo Takeya, Mari Kushibuchi, Naoto Sakaguchi, Hideaki Umura, Akiko Oishi, and Ai Yawada. I only remember Akiko Oishi. I recognize some of these names because, some of these names are people who were in Kushibuchi. I think she used to be a member of a couple of these guys are previous, elected officials from previous years. Akiko is a newer representative. I remember her because I saw she was trending because she was one of 2 people. I think one of the other ones on the Reiwa list is also one of the 2 pro-Palestinian members of the government of Japan. But broadly, yeah, the election was seen as very game-changing because now it looks like the Liberal Democrats might not have a chance to form a majority. And what is worse is that it looks like there's some talk with the opposition to possibly change that for the better. Because while the Constitutional Democratic Party has stated that they ideally would have wanted to go solo to win, it looks like they're now starting to have some talks with some leaders of the opposition blocs. With the Constitutional Democratic Party saying that their first 3 priorities are to focus on Inshin Nippon no Kai, the Democratic Party of the People, and the Japanese Communist Party, because those 3 parties were the ones who basically helped spearhead these elections to happen to begin with. And the Social Democrats have 1 seat, so they didn't win any seats, I don't think, but they have 1 member of the Diet that remains, so they're still in the fray. They're going to try and get them to join in as well. And while they haven't officially had talks, it appears that they want to get Reiwa to join as well. And things have gotten so desperate that the Liberal Democrats, to try and maintain relevancy, literally they had this big scandal where they banned a bunch of Liberal Democratic politicians who were caught in massive scandals. But then they were like, hey guys, come back to the party, please. But anyways, all the finagling with the Constitutional Democratic Party, even with all the finagling to try and get as many of the opposition bloc parties to join in as possible, which thankfully does not include San Sieto or the Conservative Party, that's apparently a bridge too far, or Komieto, or of course the Liberal Democrats, because they want to get those guys out of power. Even after all the tabulation, they're still left with 1 party short, 1 person short. So there actually is also even talks of them to try and talk to one of the opposition independents to possibly get them to join in as well. So, fingers crossed that they managed to pull this through, and hopefully they'll be able to be more successful than the Israeli massive coalition. Speaking of Israel, they did 2 really bad things recently. What else is new? Anyways, the first thing that I'm going to talk about is on October 29th, the Knesset approved laws that ban the UN's rights organ. The UN is now banned. The UNWRA is now banned from Israel. And it's going to, of course, limit the ability to go into the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, which is very weird because if I remember correctly, I thought you guys said that wasn't Israel. That wasn't Israel. I thought if you guys are separate countries and you guys aren't occupying these places, how do you get to dictate who gets to be in those countries again? That's very weird, very interesting, very weird. How do you get to dictate that? Like what? How is this a thing? How is this a thing that it's just like? And I'll just be upfront. Israel needs to be kicked out of the UN. Absolutely. If they are literally being like, no, the UN can't come into our country. It's like, then you can't come to the UN. Get out of here. And I saw some things online that were like rumors or something along the lines that said like, it was a tweet that someone said like, Israel can lose the UN, can be forced to leave the UN by the end of this year. And it's like, I don't know if that's true because that would mean believing in a world that functions normally. And as we've seen with Israel thus far, that hasn't happened yet. This is just so fucking weird. How can Israel just openly be like, yes, we are part of the UN, but the UN can't come into our country? It's like, in what sense does that fucking make? Man, that sucks. Man, maybe Israel will do something to surpass that. Let's see. Knesset advances legislation that could make it easier to disqualify Arab lawmakers. A bill that changes the criteria for banning candidates from running in the Knesset, which could make it easier to push out Arab-led parties and MKs, passed a preliminary reading on Wednesday. The amendment to Basic Law of the Knesset, which passed by a vote of 61-35, would expand the current rule whereby candidates can only be banned from running if there is a significant body of evidence that they have. What? The law explicitly says, right here, the law explicitly states, they can only be banned if they have significant body of evidence that they have supported terror. And now they're literally just trying to get rid of that part that says, yeah, we're going to do it without evidence. Israel is a fascist state. Israel is a fascist state. Israel is an abundantly fascist state. That is just objective fact. Literally, they are just openly like, yes, we can ban people from being in the Knesset, from being in the government, without even having sufficient evidence of them doing anything wrong. How is this? I genuinely cannot imagine anybody in the remote world that's just like, yes, Israel, yes, they're the good guys, they're the only democracy in the Middle East, blah, 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 blah. I mean, honestly, what more can I say? What more can I say about this? What more can I say? Let's just move from one completely outlandish story to another. Okay, so I don't necessarily want to read the title quite yet, because the title is fucking funny. Alright, so let us explain a situation that happened. Okay, so Evo Morales, remember him? Former president of Bolivia? Alright, so he posted a video on Twitter, and a bunch of people on the online world kind of went crazy over it. It was a video of him inside of his car, and you could hear gunshots and the car speeding off, and people were talking in Spanish and screaming and stuff. And basically, his tweet was basically saying how he suffered an assassination attempt. And he was like, people tried to kill me. What the fuck, man? That's crazy. Fascism is rising under Arce. That's crazy, man. A lot of Western people could immediately omit that last part and just go like, wow, Evo Morales was attacked in Bolivia. That's crazy. I don't think the initial tweet explicitly stated, but yeah, he very much heavily implied that Arce was the one who tried to have him killed. And there was no context to that clip, literally just oh, somebody was shooting at his car and he fled. But then, the interior minister of the country, Eduardo del Castillo, literally gave full context for this clip, where he says that there was an anti-drug patrol that was going on in that area where Evo Morales was. And Evo Morales and his supporters, like Evo Morales' supporters, his security detail, shot at the police and ran over a cop. And then when he was fleeing, that's when they fired back. Interesting. That's just like, yeah. And just for the record, the title of the document is, the title of the news story is "Bolivian Government Denies Attempt to Kill Evo Morales." So it's like, what? This is insane. Evo Morales, again, you put Arce in power. I need to remind everybody with all the situation to understand this. Evo Morales put Arce in power. He made it so that Mas was going to pick someone else to be the nominee. Evo Morales told them, no, pick Arce to be the nominee. Then when he returned to Bolivia, he tried to get involved in Arce's cabinet, tried to get involved in presidential decisions. Arce told him no. He said, I will not do this. I am the president. I am the one who makes the rules. So Evo Morales, ever since that day, has been trying to claim that Arce is like this turncoat traitor to Mas. And he has a bunch of hardcore supporters that will defend him to the day he dies. Even while he's currently being investigated for sex trafficking of a minor, because allegedly he had sex with a minor. Investigations that are continuing, that were started by right-wing opposition, but is being continued by Arce. Just have the investigation play out. And if there's nothing wrong, then Evo Morales will be exonerated. And if there is something wrong, then he should be punished. Objective fact. This one's going to be very difficult because I'm writing an episode on the pink tide. I guess I might make a poll at some point, either when this episode comes out or like when a little bit after. I guess when this episode comes out, because this is going to be the end. That'll be the end of the polls that I do. Should any of these accusations and all this current actions of Evo Morales raise or lower him on the pink tide rankings, or just add an addendum to basically say, I'm only talking about his administration. I'm only talking about the administration. Everything else is just shitty. All right, let's move on to the next story. This one you're going to be confused why I'm talking about it for a little bit, but then I'm going to explain why I'm talking about it. So, for those who don't know, you remember the McDonald's memes? Where McDonald's, like the meme is that they have broken ice cream machines, and it's crazy? Well, turns out very recently, October 25th, the United States Copyright Office granted a copyright exemption that gives restaurants like McDonald's the right to repair broken machines by circumventing digital locks that prevent them from being fixed by anyone other than the manufacturer. Because there's multiple reasons why the story goes the way it is. See, all of McDonald's ice cream machines are done by one manufacturer. And that manufacturer has the exclusive rights to repair and fix any problems with the machines. There was also a problem because, I think also there was another one where it's they also clean the machines very frequently, so it's like that. But it seems this was the primary concern, especially with franchises. If a McDonald's is owned by the McDonald's Corporation, they can very easily get that man over there to, fix the machine. But franchises are very much different. And it wasn't until obviously it was because of certain copyright laws. McDonald's apparently owned the copyrights to fixing the machine, or you can't fix and you can't do anything about that regard. I also just got a Discord message not that long ago about right to repair. It's ultimately it's I don't really see a problem with it. Ultimately, I'm not that in depth about the issue. I don't really have that much in depth about analysis on it. I only really heard about this issue when Dan Osborne started talking about it. But I ultimately it's this one I think really shows a big problem with it. Again, I guess spoilers for another future video. I plan to make a video why copyright is bullshit. I'm probably going to include this story in it now. Copyright prevented you from getting McFlurries in McDonald's. Again, very weird. Whatever. But let's move on to the next story. And this story is going to be a big one. The October surprise is here, everybody. I guess it was better late than never. So I'm gonna have to give some big context. I'm talking about this for a very specific reason. Okay, so Donald Trump held a Nazi rally in Madison Square Garden. Very obviously chose that place for very obvious reasons. But what ended up happening is that during the rally, one guy, a random comedian, just randomly started making racist jokes about Puerto Ricans. Literally just if I remember correctly, the joke was, there's a floating garbage island and it's called Puerto Rico. That was the joke. It was like, yes, funny, haha, laugh. And it seemed like it was just going to be another one of those things where it's like, yeah, Donald Trump and his camp says something racist, and then, everybody moves on about it. But for some reason, this one stuck. For some reason, I'll get into why in a second, but for some reason, this one stuck. And it stuck, and it became very prominent for one big reason, and it was the fact that of all the Hispanic populations, Puerto Ricans apparently seem to have a lot more of an ideological diverse set. Like, I mean, we all know like the adage of some Latinos are not like a monolithic voting bloc, because they're taking people from vastly different cultures, vastly different backgrounds, and then forcing them all into one group. Of course, they're not going to have like that much of an ideological overlap. Cubans, of course, being a very obvious example, but Puerto Ricans seem to have there seemed to be another one in the camp, where they seem to have a lot of ideological diversity, apparently. I've seen Puerto Ricans be, like, extremely radical socialists, while also ones being, like, extremely hardcore, like, right-wing Republicans. And it seemed this did a lot of things, because there were a lot of Puerto Ricans who were apparently very heavily going to vote for Trump, but then, after those remarks, they magically said, you know what? No, I'm not going to vote for Trump anymore. Now I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris. And it came even worse because one of the areas that has a lot of Puerto Ricans is Pennsylvania, the state that a lot of people are saying is the big deciding factor of this election. So a lot of people have tried to do damage control. Like the Trump campaign tried to massively, they tried to do brief damage control, but it didn't really matter. It was whatever. It didn't matter. Then Joe Biden made a claim the only garbage I see is his supporters, and a lot of people got more mad at that. Literally, it's like a night and day, where conservatives are like, we called Puerto Ricans garbage. It's just a joke. Joe Biden calls Donald Trump supporters and racist garbage. How dare you? You insulted millions of Americans. It's like, fuck off with that crybaby bullshit. Fuck off with that. But there is one thing that I really wanted to say. This is one thing I really wanted to kind of acknowledge about this. A lot of people were really confused about this. Why this? Why, of all of the things, did this be the thing that broke people? Why? Why, of all the things, of all the things that Donald Trump has said about this? And I saw this thing where a lot of people were trying to say, but Donald Trump said shitty things about Latinos the entire election. I don't know why they got mad now. It's like, guys, you don't understand this about Latinos, Latinas, Latinx, whatever you want to call them. You don't understand this fact. A lot of people who are Latino do not see themselves as Latino. A lot of people who are Latino see themselves as their race, their ethnic group, their country. They're not, you see a group of Latinos and they don't go, oh, we're a bunch of Latinos. I mean, yes, granted, some do, some don't, but you more likely see people I'm Argentinian, I'm Mexican, I'm Puerto Rican, I'm Bolivian, I'm Venezuelan, I'm blah, 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 I'm Cuban. They more have a connection to their national heritage as opposed to the broad category of Latino. Because again, Latino is a very broad category. And you know this, you can literally just go to any single Latin American country and they have vastly different things. And Latin American countries have had conflicts because of this. Colorism. You ever heard of colorism? Colorism is where racial groups will see lighter skinned versions as better and darker skinned versions as worse. That's why we get people that happened. Literally, that happened. Alberto Fernandez, former president of Argentina, he was literally he literally made a spiel about oh, Mexicans are descendants from Indians. Meanwhile, we are descendants from the Spaniards. And it's yeah, there's a lot of that within the Latino community, where a lot of people who are lighter skinned see that it's not just necessarily just from country to country. It even is country themselves. Of course, indigenous Latinos have a lot more historical oppression than lighter-skinned Spanish-related ones. Mexico's a prime example. People in the northern part of Mexico look down on the people in the southern parts of Mexico, in both literal sense and also in the sense of they're poor, they're brown, they're the inferior versions. We are the better ones. And a lot of Latinos really do see that. It's the same thing with this. It's in America, again, not all Latinos see themselves universally with solidarity with each other. They see themselves as different. It can be colorism, it can be nationality, and it can even be something as simple as immigration status. This is I remember seeing a study like this where it was there were a lot of immigrants Like people who immigrated to the United States, who then in turn get really mad at future immigrants because they see themselves like, look, we are the good ones, they're the bad ones. And I saw a thing that was like recently today where it's like, yeah, a lot of Latinos don't view like, and that's the difference. That's the same thing. Puerto Ricans saw themselves like, look, no. They're not like, no. They're not like Mexicans. Mexicans come into the country from Mexico. Like, they immigrant here. We're Puerto Ricans. We were born here. We live in America. We're in American territory. They view themselves in a somewhat superior complex in that regard. And then it got shattered. Because now they're like, oh, we are just like the rest of them. Divides that are manufactured by the ruling white class to make sure that we don't like each other. It's the same thing where like every other week they'll be like, oh, look, black people versus Palestinian people. It's like, why? Why would black people and Palestinian people hate each other? But today it's like, why would someone from Puerto Rico hate someone from Mexico? Because the white man told them that that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to hate each other. It's the same thing with a lot of people. It's like, oh, you feel like you need to be more white to order to assimilate. That's in a lot of other communities. That's what colorism is such a big thing. The ones who are lighter skinned can adapt. They can be better. While the ones who are darker skinned can't. So they look at them in inferior ways. Unfortunately, this is going to be a wake-up call for a lot of people. This will be a wake-up call for now, but eventually it's just going to go back to the way it was before because people are dumb and don't understand this. Speaking of things that you don't understand, let's move on to the main topic of this video. 2024 election. It's going to come out the day after I upload this, the 2024 election. So majority of you have probably voted already. Probably majority of you are voting for Kamala Harris, hopefully, And yeah, let's just get into it. Even though this is my final prediction video of the time period. Let's go. I mean, I made it's my third prediction video of this year. One I made early in the year, like the first podcast of the year. One made after, like, a little bit after the Kamala switch, like, after the conventions. And this one is going to be the final one. No ifs, ands, or buts. Let's get into it. I will say one more thing. Again, I'm not going to pussyfoot my way out of it, in a sense. No toss-ups. Even if I generally think that the race could be a bit of a toss-up, whatever. I'm just going to go whichever way my gut tells me to. Similar to how I will actually explain this. How do I think the race is going to go? Just like a little bit of my gut telling me where things are going to go, but also, of course, through some analysis of like actual people who know better than me, pollsters. They're very rarely am I going to see a pollster that I'm going to like go reject with. But I will sometimes. You'll see what I mean when I get into it. And hopefully I'll do a better job explaining why I disagree or agree with certain polls. Alright, so first predictions I'm going to get into, governor's race predictions, because why the hell not? They don't really change the partisan breakdown of the nation, most are boring safe seats, there are only 3 governor's races that are worth covering. Puerto Rico can actually be daring and elect a pro-independence governor. Not much is going to be, I'm not even that much of an independence guy, but shoot, let's go. Juan Dalmu for governor, will he win? Maybe, probably not, but I'd like to see it. More likely it's going to go to the new progressive person, but Dalmu has a shot. I think so. Next one, New Hampshire. This is one of those northern eastern liberal Republican areas that has split tickets with Democrats in the past. Maryland was like this for a bit. Since the GOP governor didn't sway too rightward, Dems were more comfortable giving them the seat. But in the state, things have gotten a bit interesting lately. You see, the incumbent governor, Chris Sununu, has retired. He was kinda an anti-Trump Republican, kind of liberal libertarian. He broadly didn't like Trump, but he was more of like a team player. He's generally like a team player kind of guy. He wasn't like Phil Scott, Baker, or Hogan. Kind of like they broadly were like, yeah, we just don't like him generally. But he was still like he was like a team player. Again, like he generally was like, he's on my team, so I'll back him because he's a part of my team. But not in like an actual political partisan sense. But the state GOP has kind of trended in a little bit of a different direction. Okay, so Kelly Ayoade, who has very similar ideology to Sununu, kind of like a liberal libertarian Republican. But for this election, she started to shift rightward to be more in line with Trumpism, which again, kind of similar to him in the sense of like, yeah, kind of like shifting a little bit to be more of like a Trumpster. But I don't really know much about the race, I will say. Currently, the races have Iota with a slim lead, but Trumpsters have been nominated in the past. There's a chance that they might not win, but maybe for the governor's race, they might shift things. I don't know. So, North Carolina. You all had me worried for a second, buddy. I thought for a second that I had to be governed by a Republican. But Mark Robinson couldn't keep his cock in his pants long enough, so Stein's winning very easily. A statement that no Green Party person will ever hear. Next, why don't we talk about the House Representatives? I tried to use the 270 to win numbers, which would have only given me 25 seats to analyze. But when I was looking through them, I started thinking, wait, hold on. This is confusing. So I basically just decided to say, fuck it, and decided to use the Cook Political Voting Index for all the seats that are considered quote-unquote in play, plus whatever, like just things that I kind of generally already know. Anything less than 5 points will be added here. Even if I don't think they should be added here, because like there's some places where it's like on paper it is competitive, but in practice it's not. Like, I mean, if for technical every seat is competitive, but come on, we know that in a lot of cases, there, barring rare circumstances, it's going to go one way or the other. But I'll just be briefly blazing through all these races, with me only mentioning some slight, like only a couple of races are going to get like more analysis than simply just me saying blue or red. All right, here we go. Alabama District 2, blue. Alaska District at Large. I'm going to break with consensus and go with red. Hear me out. Hear me out. Peltola's race right now has some worry. One big thing that benefited her last time was something called the first round squeeze. Basically, what happened is, in the first round, they would have 2 Republicans, one really big name Republican, and Nick Bekich. And since more Republicans were more inclined to vote for Palin than Bekich, what ended up happening is that Palin ended up sucking all the support in the first round. So that when Bekich supporters were a little bit like Bekich supporters were a bit more divided in the regards. Some went to Peltola, some went to Palin. Like some were like party loyalists, some were more like, let's be a bit more broadly closer to like the center or whatever. Because Bekich is part of a bipartisan political family. So generally, he had some broader outreach. All the while, she swallows up the entirety of Democratic Party support. So basically, she has nowhere to go but up. But now, things are a bit lopsided, because now, finally, Bekich is going to be the only Republican to run against her. And the 2 people who are also running in that race are not going to do her any favors. One of them is a far-right independent party, and one of them is a tiny Democratic candidate. Neither are going to benefit her. All those far-right people are going to naturally gravitate towards Bekich as their second choice, more than likely. But there's another Democrat in the race, and it's possibly going to siphon off support from her in the first round. Because, again, she benefited from the fact that no other Democrat was on the first round. So she could just get all the Democratic support, and then whatever, like, the more moderate candidates splitting support to the next person. But now it looks like it's not going to work well for her. Maybe she'll pull it off, but I think that this is actually way more likely that it's going to flip red if it might, again, it might stay the same, but it might not, whatever. Arizona District 1, blue. Arizona District 2, blue. Arizona 4, blue. Arizona 6, blue. California 3, red. California 9, 13, 22, 27 are all blue. California 40 and 41 are red. California 45, 47, and 49 are blue. Colorado 3, red. Colorado 7 and 8, blue. Connecticut 2 and 5, blue. Again, like the races are close on paper, but not in practice. Florida District 27 and 28, red. Illinois 6 and 17, blue. Indiana 1, blue. Iowa 2 and Iowa 1, red. But Iowa 3, I think is going to flip blue. Kansas 3, blue. Maine 2, blue. This one I kind of flip-flopped on how it was going to be, But ultimately, I decided that Maine was more than likely to go blue. Like, I was kind of worried because I was just, like, not worried in the sense, but, like, I was kind of, like, interested to see because it was, like, I saw Golden and another opponent. I was, like, oh, he benefits from ranked choice voting. He could obviously, he might lose, but then it's like, oh, wait, he did face a one person before. So it's like, oh, okay, so he has a better shot than I realized. Okay, blue. Maryland 6, blue. Michigan 3, blue. Michigan 7, red. Michigan 8, blue. Michigan 10, red. Minnesota 2, blue. Nebraska 2, blue. Nevada's 1, 3, and 4, blue. New Hampshire's districts 1 and 2 are blue. New Jersey 2, red. New Jersey 3, blue. New Jersey 5, blue. New Jersey 7, red. All 3 of New Mexico's districts, blue. New York 1 and 2 are red. New York 3 and 4, blue. New York 11, red. New York 17 has a little bit of a concern. I would have generally put it in the same level of like other like New York. You'll see what I mean. I guess I'll talk about the other ones first. New York 18 blue, New York 19 blue, New York 22 blue. New York 17, I was a little bit concerned because I thought it was just going to be just like the other ones were just going to flip back because really I genuinely believe that a lot of the New York seats are flukes. But Anthony Frascone's Working Families Party general election bid gives me some unease. Like, he will more than likely siphon off some support from people who don't know or are not paying attention to the race. But I don't know how much he will, because the Working Families Party has been putting a lot of effort to make sure people know Frascone is fake, a fraud. I would put this as a toss-up, but again, I told myself, no toss-ups. So I'm going to give it blue just for now, because I think, again, fluke. North Carolina 1, blue. Ohio 1, blue. Ohio 9, blue. Ohio 10, red. Ohio 13, blue. Oregon 4, Oregon 5, Oregon 6, blue. Pennsylvania 1, red. Pennsylvania 6, 7, and 8, blue. Pennsylvania 10, I'd originally give it to the Republican 100%, but I have seen some polls that make me concerned that the Democrat could actually pull it off, but I don't know how much it is polling for now, so I'm going to give it to the Republicans just to be safe. Pennsylvania 17, blue. Rhode Island 2, blue. Texas 15, red. Michelle Vallejo's pivot isn't going to work this time. Rarely works at all. Texas 23, red. Texas 28, blue. Virginia 2, red. Virginia 7, blue. Washington 3, I'm going to give it to red. The polls are a bit mixed for the seat because it's easier for a House member to lose one term over other people, like a senator, but I do think it is going to be red. I wanted to be bold and say that all 3 of the Blue Dogs are probably going to get put down, but again, Maine, like Golden has like a little bit more staying power than the other 2. The other 2 just got here. Maine, like Golden has enough like momentum to stay around. Washington District 8, blue. Wisconsin 1, blue. Wisconsin 3, blue. So my broad partisan index for the upcoming race is it's going to be a 223-212 House, with the Dems taking it. Specific races may vary, especially with the Blue Dogs and Mondaire, but I generally see, generally I think the number's going to be the right. It's the same thing with the last time. The last time I predicted the numbers right, but I did not pick the actual index right. I was like, oh, this seat's going to go blue, this seat's going to go red. But no, it was a different race that went blue and a different race that went red. Now, if you want more in-depth analyses, let's go to the Senate. Now, the states that are considered 100% safe beyond a shadow of a doubt lead to a partisan index of 42-46, with 12 seats having a little bit of a different story, not 100% clear on how the races are going to pan out. A lot of people are a lot of people are saying a lot of things, depending on the races, depending on the things. Things aren't 100% guaranteed one way or the other, but let's just get into it. First, Missouri. Guys, I gotta be real. As much as I've been trying to manifest it, as much as I've been trying, I'm just have to face the facts, guys. Red. Just red. Just take the Band-Aid. Take it quick, man. it really doesn't seem like it's going to go. I mean, there's been some recent polls in the last minute that have been showing that it has been getting a little tighter, but I honestly don't, as much as I wish it were true, I don't think Hawley will lose. If Hawley loses, I will be ecstatic, but I sadly don't think so. Kuntz has probably got a good shot, but otherwise, I don't think he's going to pull through, my friends. Florida. Debbie might put up a good fight, but I don't think it's enough to pull it off, unfortunately. Red. Texas. All Red's race is going to be close. I'm a little unsure. I could be... It is the closest one that I could put to a toss-up. But honestly, again, if I want to go by partisan, I said no toss-ups. So I'm going to give Red. Wisconsin. I have no clue why they put Baldwin here. Like, I know why they put it theoretically, because theoretically it can flip. But in practice, again, I don't really see it flipping. Unless it's going to be Alabama 2017, it's going to take that situation for it to change. Blue. Maryland. Now, all of you might be a little bit like, Maryland? You put that above Tammy Baldwin? Yes. Hear me out. Maryland's faced a choice of a black progressive versus Hogan before. And they picked wrong before. Granted, again, it was a governor's race, which liberals are more able to give it to a Republican because they're afraid of certain things, and Ben Jealous was a borderline socialist. But it is possible. It is possible. And one big one is the fact, a lot of people try to brush it off and be like, there's no way it's going to work. The last time they did this was in Hawaii. And it's like, guys, Hawaii is a vastly different situation. Hawaii is a majority-minority state. Maryland is not. So it is possible. Probable? No, obviously not. It's not probable. Again, I'm saying it is possible. They recruited Hogan for a reason, but I don't think it's probable. So, blue. Arizona. I'll be real, Ruben Gallego's running away with this race. Blue. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that one's lax, but it's like, it just really looks like he's running away with the race. It really doesn't seem like they're going to go with Kari Lake. Pennsylvania. This might be Casey's closest race, but I think he's running away with it too. Blue. Nevada. I'm gonna be real. I gotta say it again. I'm sorry. We all know why Rosen's running away with this seat. Blue. And the next Senate race, Nebraska. You all thought that I put this in the safe category, huh? But no. I put Nebraska, and I put it up here for a reason. You might, again, Osborne's been putting in a lot of work. Dan Osborne has been putting a lot of work. To the point where I actually do think he does have a shot. Now, again, granted, every candidate has a shot in a sense. He's the only other candidate in the race, so theoretically, yes, he has a shot. And it really does seem like he's really trying hard to win. Like, remember, very early on, he was pushing it like, oh, I'm like the Midwestern populist guy. Like, remember, very early on, he was trying to run as like, I am the Democrat nominee, essentially. Now, he's kind of been like shifting away to the point where even now he's kind of like gotten a bit more like, bad and cringe, because he's even made ads being like trying to tie himself to Trump. But again, a lot of other like Democrats have been doing that as well. Sherrod Brown and Casey have been doing it as well. But one big problem with this race in particular is that it lacks one big thing. Unbiased polls. Every poll that has been conducted with this race has been run by one of the two candidates. And it just really stems like a lot of problems. Like, one has, like, when Dan Osborne released the poll, it's like, oh, I'm in striking distance, or oh, I'm a little higher than her. And Deb, it's always like a little bit more like, again, it puts her in the lead most likely. And people have compared this to previous like independents without Democratic contenders like Evan McMullin and Greg Orman. Now, I think Dan's different enough from these two that it really can work where those two fail. Because honestly, who gives a shit about Evan McMullin? Like, really? Like, Evan McMullin and Greg Orman really came from, like, different styles. McMullin was, of course, a CIA agent before he became a presidential candidate. Then he became a Senate candidate. Greg Orman is a businessman. You know, they kind of come from, like, you know, that kind of centrism. Like, the fake centrism that the neoliberal establishment feeds you. Meanwhile, Dan comes from, like, a more rural populist centrism. Is it enough? If I were realistic, probably not. But just to be a little wacky, and just so I can get the clicks and views if I get this right, I'm gonna give it to Dan Osborne. Why the hell not? It clearly worked for Tim Ryan when I said that he had a chance, so why not now? Speaking of Ohio, Sherrod Brown is similar to Casey. He might be facing his closest race, but honestly, I think he's walking away with it, to be fair. I'll be real. It's closer than all the other ones, but I do think it's a chance. Blue. Michigan. The reason I put this above Ohio is simply because of the uncommitted movement / protest votes. Like, that is a slight concern that I have. Whether or not those people are going to flip to vote for Kamala and / or the Democratic nominee in this race. I honestly am not sure if Slotkin can manage to sway those people to vote for her. If Hill Harper had been the nominee, he could have, but I don't think Slotkin has that effort. That being said, due to other things about the uncommitted movement, I'm not entirely sure that this is going to lead to that much of a problem, because again, remember, the uncommitted movement in general has backed Kamala Harris and has told them to vote for the Democratic nominees. As such, I think a lot of them will just end up voting for the Democratic nominees. So, I'm going to give it to her for now. Just say I'm going to give it to her. Montana. While Tester has a shot, obviously, and I have in the past given Tester the win in previous times, polls have not been doing him any favors. And, honestly, I can't really see it. It's more likely, other ones with other races and other areas, I can see ways that they could win. But Tester, unfortunately, his routes to victory are a little slower. So I'm going to have to be real and just say this. I'm going to give it to Sheehy. Now, the results of my predictions would be as follows. A 49-150 Senate. But we all know where that one is really going to go. I'm more confident in these results than the House ones. Barring, the obvious one. It is possible, best case scenario, Dan Osborne and Tester win. But, again, a little bit concerning. All Dems really need to make sure is they don't fuck up really hard. Like the fucking, last time, the 2018 massacre. They just don't want those numbers. That's the one numbers that we really don't need. And last, but certainly not least, finally, my final predictions for the 2024 presidential race. Like the last time I did this, there are 10 areas that are broadly considered competitive. And just going by blue and red states, the vote totals would be 225 in the Electoral College for Kamala and 149 for Trump. But how are we going to fill the rest of those slots, baby? Alright, let's just get into it. First, Nebraska District 2. Republicans failed, so this area's going blue. No 269, my boys. Florida. It will be rather close, but unfortunately, I don't think it's gonna be blue quite yet, my friends. Those damn Cubans. Texas. Now, Texas, remember, back in 2020, people were really concerned about, people were really oh, Texas could be doing well. And yes, under that trend, we could see possibly really good results coming from Texas. And I think this will be the closest Texas Senate result, the Texas result, since 1976, which was 51 Democrat, 48 Republican. I don't think it will be that level, but it will be slightly closer than the 2020 results, 52-46. Especially if All Red really does pull in the work, which will be a recurring theme on the list. It could just be historical precedent and me being safe from the last time because I gave Texas a toss-up in the last cycle. But honestly, as of right now, I'm going to have to give it to Red right now. Just because, again, better safe than sorry, my friends. I think 2028 will be the year, though. 2028 will be the year that Texas will start to make a massive shift to being a swing state. Wisconsin. I've seen a lot of people have a lot of anxiety about Wisconsin and the other Rust Belt states. 2016 election results are the progressive left online pundits' Vietnam. But before anybody gets worried, we need to take some things into consideration. 8 years have passed since those results. In 2016, people didn't know how Trump would govern. In 2024, they know what he would do, and they didn't like it. Maybe if Trump ran in 2028, he could have tried to run nostalgia baiting his administration. I know there are a lot of people who have collective amnesia about Trump, but the online things that don't affect people day to day. They don't look, maybe they might not necessarily remember, oh yeah, this specific tax policy, or this specific tariff policy, or this specific blah blah blah. But they will remember the literal goddamn plague that happened during the Trump administration. People are forgetting the specific scenarios that led them to make that decision in 2016. We are currently not debating a trade deal that would fuck over manufacturing in Wisconsin. We do not have a situation where it's like, oh, Hillary Clinton, notoriously anti-union president. We're not having that. Most prominent manufacturing unions are enthusiastically backing Harris. Another is the fact that in Wisconsin and in Pennsylvania, there were high-profile Senate seats that were going on with 2 Republican incumbents. Now the situation is reversed. Now it's a Democratic incumbent incumbent senator. Democrat incumbents are the ones who are going to be doing the talking, which will do a lot better to help Harris in this race. So I think this side of the blue wall is staying up for now. Before we continue with the rest of the Rust Belt, let's go to the Sun Belt. This one's going to be very interesting because polls in Arizona are rather bleak. But I'm not so sure, because there is a similar situation here as was with Wisconsin. As much as neither want to admit it, McCain and Trump played a huge role in the elections. Trump played a huge role in McCain's Senate election. McCain played a huge role in Trump's election. McCain suffered his worst loss in his history because Latino voters were turned off from Trump. And Trump got a slight boost because purely John McCain made him look slightly less insane. Despite the fact that the two notoriously hate each other, they did somewhat benefit each other to an extent. And ever since then, the state has drifted further and further away from Trump, to the point where I literally call it the McCain curse. Literally, look at the results since 2016. Sinema, Kelly, Biden, Kelly again, Hobbs. The Gallego Lake race is going to play a huge role in that as well. And I don't see any major situation where they would change, really. So right now, I'm going to have to give it to blue. Pennsylvania, the most important swing state, according to every pundit, it seems, with most stating whoever wins this state will be the presidency. And while it does have more routes to flip than Wisconsin, not by much, they're actually a mix of Wisconsin and Arizona in that regard. Like the latter, they basically have went deeper blue ever since Trump's administration, with, again, incumbent senator kind of basically trying to make the way for the person who's running for president. And things have gotten even more lopsided thanks to the 500,000 Puerto Ricans who apparently either didn't vote or were on their way to vote that have been shifting ever since Trump made the fucking racist comments against them. Literally, again, they're literally on their way to vote for him. And then it's like, oh, I was going to vote for you, but you said racist things about me, so I'm not going to vote for you anymore. So it looks like Pennsylvania might be going blue. Next, Nevada. Originally, I was a bit more brushing off the idea that the state was going to go to the GOP. And while I still maintain that Dems have a better shot here than people realize, recent history has shown that the state's open to split ticketing. They did elect Mosto and Lombardo in 2022. Granted, this is slightly different, especially considering Lombardo isn't a Trumpster, but the polls have shown that they have a bluish-purple bend, which is very much in line with the state, so I will generally just go with blue for Nevada. Georgia. Blorja was the thing that a lot of people really liked about the last election. And a lot of things have been going on to try and make sure that Blorja won't happen again. While Biden didn't necessarily need Blorja to win, its results solidified the win so that people couldn't necessarily dispute it 100%, despite the many attempts that they tried to dispute it. But there were two things that I think really solidified the massive results in the race. Big voter drive from Stacey Abrams, and 2 high-profile Senate seats. And if you remember, the GOP has been trying to prevent that in the state with their pushes to ruin the enfranchisement, among other things. And while they failed in a little bit of an extent in that regard, I honestly can't in good faith give it to Kamala. I think I said this at the time, but I'll say it again. If Warnock were not on the ballot, I think Biden would have lost the state. This was a bit out there, but I literally genuinely predicted that Warnock would win and Ossoff and Biden would lose. Even though I know that's stupid to think about, but it did seem likely that people would be more confident in Raphael Warnock than the other two. And if it wasn't for the so-called radical liberal Raphael Warnock, I honestly think, again, the state would have not been as like that. Well, granted, Abrams also did a lot of work, but again, I really think that Warnock was the one who solidified it. And unfortunately, Kamala doesn't have a Warnock to help her out. Yes, he probably has and can campaign for her, but you know what I mean. If I were completely honest, I'd go toss-up. I'd give this race a toss-up. But I said, again, no toss-ups. So, I'm just going to play it safe and just give it to the Republicans for now. Next, Michigan. The Gaza protest vote movements are playing a bigger role in the state than I initially thought. Some, like the uncommitted movement in general, have tacitly backed Harris, and even to an extent, Rashida has tacitly backed Harris. She hasn't officially endorsed her, but she's tacitly backed her. I think she's literally holding a rally with AOC and Bernie to essentially endorse Kamala Harris pretty soon, but it's not universal. 2 Muslim mayors in the state have made headlines with further actions on this. Abdullah Hammoud of Dearborn simply telling people to vote their conscience while making it very clear that he does not endorse Kamala Harris, while the mayor of Hamtramck, Amir Ghalib, having jumped on the Trump train. Trump has even gone so far as to try and court Muslim voters in Michigan, most prominently inviting a bunch of Muslims on the stage at a rally. There are some who have even tried to make the claim that this is going to make a massive shift for Muslims in the GOP. Because, as you know, if you remember, Muslims were actually a pretty prominent GOP base. Then 9/11 happened and has shifted so that Muslims are now a majority Democrat base. But is that true? And I'll be real, it's not. It's not true at all. This is like, most people are trying to paint this like, oh, like it's like this. No. What it is this. It's religious fundamentalists versus normal people. Yeah, Muslims have, of course, vastly different views in regards to their religion, in regards to other things. And this is just that. It's religious fundamentalists voting for their socially conservative reactionary views, and there are other ones who are voting for the actual, representative interest of their communities, literally. And that's what will happen with every single religious group when they get more accepted. Naturally, it's just going to happen. It's more of just a symbol of, religious acceptance of Muslims. They're now going to be the point where it's they don't feel like they need to vote for one particular party to live, and now they're like, okay, now we can actually vote on the issues that we want to. And also, it's just Amir Ghalib cucking his own community. Not just Muslims. The situation that I saw there, it literally reminded me of Rabbi Bengelsdorf from the fucking Plot Against America movie show, whatever, where it's it's literally just that. But also, again, he's cooking himself, not just Muslims, but he is literally an immigrant from Yemen. Amir Ghalib is going to be voting and supporting the guy who literally caused a genocide in his home country. Massive triple cuck. He's an immigrant from Yemen. There's news articles that go on about how his election was loaded by the city's LGBTQ community, and then Ghalib literally stabbed them in the back because he loves his magic sky daddy more than the real world. It's literally the meme that a lot of the anti-SJW YouTubers were warning us about, where it's when they get in here, they're going to do all this bad things, how are you going to support them? You blah, blah, blah. But it's guys, I'm from the new atheist world, so I don't do that thing. Amir Ghalib and all the Muslims who were at Trump's rally, Allah's fake. You guys are stupid. Reactionary religious people get shit on this channel. I don't care which God you believe in. If you're a reactionary bigot, your God is fake and gay. Even if you're a socially progressive person, your God is fake and gay. Just do the real world stuff. You're just using your religion to justify your own preconditioned beliefs. And last but certainly not least, North Carolina. I predicted that Joe Biden would win North Carolina in the last election cycle. It didn't happen, and I don't fault myself for getting it wrong because of 3 reasons. 1, every poll near the end of the race thought that Joe Biden was going to win too. 2, he was probably dragged down by Cal Cunningham not keeping his cock in his pants. Wonder who he reminds me of. And 3, it was actually pretty damn close last time. He only lost by 1.34% of the vote. And honestly, despite that the polls have gotten a bit more like divided in this race, I honestly think that there's way more of a chance. I'm way more confident that Kamala Harris wins North Carolina this election cycle than Biden did last time. Like before, I've seen a ton of Kamala Harris merch. I guess I misremembered not seeing a lot of Biden merch last time because I rewatched my episode and apparently I did see enough of it to mention it at the time. But in the most honest sense, it stems from the fact that the North Carolina Democratic Party has been playing a huge role in this race. Let's go over a little bit of a timeline. One of the things that happened the last thing that Joe Biden said before he wanted to leave was that he wanted to make a play for North Carolina. Then, during the whole debacle, Biden should drop out. Who do you think was one of the top people in this crowd? Anderson Clayton and Roy Cooper. They were instrumental in this whole shift. They were meeting with Kamala Harris every day. Literally, Kamala Harris was flying to and from North Carolina the entire time. Because Anderson Clayton, she was a Kamala Harris supporter. And Roy Cooper and her are friends. And they played a huge role in this shift. And one of the first things Kamala said when she got in was she was going to make a big play for North Carolina. And Clayton, specifically, has pushed a ton of effort to increase turnout. And one of the big ways she's done that is pushing for tons of down-the-ballot races to help increase possible turnout. Massively encouraging people to commit Don Quixote campaigns rather than the previous strategy of, this race is gerrymandered. Let's give up. There is literally a woman running for the state senate right now named Kate Compton Barr, whose campaign website is, I shit you not, www.katebarrcantwin.com, with the front page saying, District 37 is so gerrymandered that I don't stand a chance, but we deserve to have 2 names on the ballot. If I'm going to lose, we might as well have a little fun, raise a little hell, and shine a light on the impacts of gerrymandering along the way. Get in, losers. We're not going to the Senate. Honestly, I'm seeing way too much work in the state for them to lose. They could still lose, obviously, that's just a thing that can happen. But another factor is just the fact that I really find it hard to see Trump's base growing. Trump's base is not growing. He's reached his peak. Kamala Harris has more people to go to her. It's just more, she has more to gain. And a similar thing, it's with Democrats, it's never less people, it's never more people vote for the Republican. It's never that. It's always less people turn out for the Democrats. That's always how it's been. If everybody who was in the Democrat tent voted, Democrats would win every single time. Meanwhile, if everybody in the Republican tent voted versus everybody in the Democrat tent, they lose. And if you were to do the tabulations from all that stuff that I said, it puts the race at a whopping 303 electoral votes to 235, thus making Kamala Harris the next president of the United States of America. And I'd honestly say I'm pretty confident in those results. Honestly. I honestly would say that I'm pretty confident in those results. And we're just seeing broadly, again, this really does seem like a 2008 Barack Obama thing. This really does seem like that. My perspective, that it really does seem like that. I really do see that a lot of people are genuinely excited to vote for Kamala Harris and are genuinely excited for that. I'm not. I don't really care. I mean, I only care about the fact of Trump losing. That's really all it is. But, and it's I guess people were excited for that last time, getting to make sure that Trump loses. That's why they voted for Biden. Like, I mean, again, I really cannot see a situation where somehow America was like, let's vote for Joe Biden, but one where they then turn and go, we can't vote for Kamala Harris. Granted, Americans can be fucking stupid sometimes. They're the ones who went, George McGovern, giving Carter another term, not give Donald Trump anywhere near the White House. So, again, it is possible that Kamala Harris could lose, but I am genuinely confident that she will win. I'm not concerned about that. I'm concerned about what happens afterwards. That's what I'm concerned about. But either way, I'm here for the long haul. Let's see how things go. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the bell to notify when a future video comes out. And if you see more content from me, consider supporting me on Patreon.